There's a video making the rounds online about a supposed screaming match between Queen Camilla and Princess Charlotte at Sandringham, with Catherine storming in to defend her daughter. It's a dramatic story. It's also not something that has actually happened, at least not in any way that's been reported or verified. What has happened is smaller, quieter, and in some ways more interesting than the fiction because it comes from real cameras, real royal watchers, and years of small, ordinary moments between three women whose lives are lived mostly in public. The most talked about moment traces back to September 19, 2022, the day of Queen Elizabeth II's funeral. It wasn't a private family lunch behind closed doors. It was one of the most heavily televised events in modern royal history, watched by hundreds of millions of people, with every camera trained on the procession. Somewhere in that procession, Prince George appeared to pinch his younger sister. Charlotte, 9 years old at the time, reacted with a small, audible, "ow," and turned to look at her brother. It's the kind of thing that happens between siblings anywhere in the world, a poke, a jab, a flinch, over almost as soon as it starts. Except this happened in front of the entire planet, at one of the most solemn ceremonies a family can hold, and cameras caught it. Sight index equals 6-1. According to lip-reading expert Jeremy Freeman, Camilla appeared to give a brief, two-word instruction to Catherine in response/sight, telling her, in effect, to manage her daughter. Sight index equals 6-1. Freeman's reading had Camilla say, "Take her," to the Princess of Wales/sight, seemingly a request to step in and settle Charlotte down. It's worth pausing on what that actually is. Not a scolding of Charlotte directly, not a raised voice, not a confrontation with Catherine, a whispered, practical remark at a funeral, caught by a camera because that's the nature of royal life now. Every gesture is filmed, and every filmed gesture eventually finds its way to a lip reader. And lip readers don't always agree with each other. Not everyone who studied the same footage reached the same conclusion. Sight index equals 6-1. Other interpretations of the moment suggested Charlotte might not have been reacting to pain at all. She may have simply been reminding George to bow/sight, telling him, "You need to bow," as they approached a particular point in the procession. If that reading is correct, there was no scuffle to react to in the first place, and Camilla's comment, whatever it was, may have been about something else entirely, or may not have been the sharp correction it was made out to be. This is where most of the royal drama content you'll find online actually comes from. A few seconds of grainy, silent footage, a lip reader's best guess, and then months of tabloid recirculation until the guess calcifies into something that sounds like established fact. It isn't. Lip reading from video, especially at a distance and through a veil, is an imprecise skill even in ideal conditions, and royal commentators who work in this space are the first to admit their readings are interpretations, not transcripts. What is fair to say is that the moment generated genuine public interest, and it became a talking point precisely because it was rare. Royal engagements are choreographed to the smallest detail, where people stand when they wave, how long a visit lasts, and a candid, unscripted beat like that one stands out simply because it's unscripted. People noticed. People speculated. And speculation, once it exists online, doesn't really go away. It gets repeated, reframed, and eventually retold as if it had always been fact. Some coverage in the aftermath went further, suggesting Catherine was privately unhappy that Camilla had weighed in on how to handle her children at all. Sight index equals 3-1. There were reports that Kate Middleton was unhappy after Camilla appeared to instruct her on parenting George and Charlotte during the funeral/sight. That's a plausible read of the situation. Nobody especially enjoys being told how to parent their own child, particularly by an in-law, and particularly not in the middle of a state funeral. But plausible isn't the same as confirmed. No one involved has ever spoken publicly about the moment, on the record, in their own words. Everything that circulates about it is secondhand, a body language expert's read, a lip reader's guess, a tabloid's framing of both. So what does the broader relationship between Camilla and Charlotte actually look like, away from that one funeral clip? By most accounts, it's warmer than the viral moment suggests. Sight index equals 2-1. Camilla is generally reported to have a good relationship with Charlotte, with the princess often seen as a reliable, composed presence at royal events/sight. Royal commentators who track the family's public appearances have pointed to something specific in how the two of them interact. Sight index equals 2-1. Body language expert Judy James has noted that Charlotte tends to be shown bonding with Camilla more than most of the other grandchildren at public events/sight, and has suggested that the exchanges some viewers read as scolding might be seen very differently in context. Sight index equals 2-1. James has argued that even if Camilla was correcting Charlotte's behavior in a given moment, Charlotte's own lack of any negative reaction suggests she doesn't experience it as upsetting/sight, that whatever dynamic exists between them, it isn't one built on fear or tension, but on the ordinary give and take of an adult occasionally reminding a child of the rules at a formal event. There's a specific texture to that observation worth sitting with. Charlotte, from a young age, has been described by royal watchers as unusually composed for a child in her position, poised at events, aware of protocol, comfortable with the formality that surrounds her. Sight index equals 2-1, James has specifically called her confident and protocol-aware, someone whose ability to lighten the mood without ever crossing into misbehavior appears to genuinely put Camilla at ease at public engagements/sight, particularly in moments when Camilla herself seems nervous or uneasy. That's a very different picture than a child being belittled by an adult. It's closer to a working relationship between a grandmother figure and a granddaughter who happen to understand each other's rhythms. None of this means the relationship is without its friction. Families are not simple, and blended royal families carry an extra layer of history and expectation that ordinary families don't have to manage in public. Camilla stepped into her role as stepmother, then step-grandmother, inside an institution still shaped by the legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, Charlotte and George's grandmother, and a figure whose relationship with the royal family was famously complicated. It would be strange if there were no tension anywhere in that dynamic, ever. But strange, occasional tension is different from what gets described in invented viral stories: a screaming confrontation, a dramatic walkout, a mother publicly rebuking a queen consort in front of stunned witnesses. There's no reporting from any credible royal correspondent, biographer, or palace source that anything resembling that has ever taken place. It's also worth noting how differently real royal moments tend to surface compared to the fabricated ones. When something genuinely significant happens within the family, a rift, a reconciliation, a hard conversation, it tends to come out slowly through royal biographers with real sourcing, through authorized interviews, or through journalists with a track record of relationships inside the household. It rarely arrives fully formed with word-for-word dialogue from an anonymous account of a private lunch nobody else has ever mentioned. The funeral moment, by contrast, exists because it was filmed, broadcast, and then interpreted, which is exactly the kind of evidence trail that real royal reporting tends to have, and that fabricated stories tend to lack entirely. Charlotte, now in her teens, has continued to appear at royal events at her grandfather King Charles's side as well. Sight index equals 10-1 royal biographer Ingrid Seward has described a warm bond forming between King Charles and Charlotte/Sight, partly attributed to sight index equals 10-1, Charles having wanted a daughter earlier in life/Sight, and to the two of them simply spending more time near each other now that Charles is based at Windsor, close to William's family. It's a reminder that Charlotte's relationships with the older generation of the family are plural and varied, not defined by a single tense moment from one funeral procession, but built up gradually across years of shared appearances, family holidays, and the ordinary texture of growing up inside an institution that happens to be constantly photographed. There's also a smaller, warmer thread that's emerged in royal-style coverage over the years. Sight index equals 7-1. Camilla and Charlotte have been noted for an unexpected shared connection through jewelry/sight, with Camilla later wearing a horseshoe-shaped brooch that echoed one Charlotte wore to her great-grandmother's funeral as a 7-year-old, a small, unscripted overlap that royal watchers found genuinely touching, and the kind of detail that tends to get lost when family story is reduced to a single dramatized clash. The honest answer, then, to what happened between Camilla and Charlotte is this: a 9-year-old got poked by her brother at a funeral, reacted the way any child would, and an adult nearby said something quiet and practical about it that a lip reader later guessed at, a guess that other lip readers didn't even agree with. Everything built on top of that, including any version where Catherine marches in to deliver a righteous rebuke in front of a stun room, is invention. It's a good story. It has the shape of the kind of moment people want to believe happens behind palace walls, quiet dignity triumphing over cold formality, a mother standing up for her child against an unfeeling institution. But wanting a story to be true isn't the same as it being true, and in this case, the actual documented record is much smaller, much less certain, and much less dramatic than the version that goes viral. What the record does show is a family navigating the ordinary complications of blending generations, expectations, and personalities under constant public observation, with moments of visible warmth, moments of visible tension, and a great deal that simply isn't known to anyone outside the family itself. That's a less satisfying story to tell. It's also the true one.